All right, we are live. This is episode 2 of the Family Alpha, the Morning Brew with Hunter Drew. Now, today I've got my first guest, which is pretty awesome. We've got Steel Jans, who is on Twitter as @SteelJans, and he writes on Barbarian Rhetoric. And we've got Mike Kane, who on Twitter is Kane Talking from the Kane Talking podcast. So, guys, give a quick intro to yourselves, and we're going to dive into this morning discussion. So, Jans, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's way too freaking early for this early morning show, but that's part of having the fun of it. So we'll enjoy.
Mike, what's going on?
Just want to shout out my podcast, the Mike Kane Cast, and get on iTunes, Spotify, Android. But that's neither here nor there compared to we're running on about 2.5 hours sleep today, brother.
And why is that? What kept you up all night?
Because I am batshit insane, and I watched the entirety of WrestleMania from the pre-show to the conclusion. That was about 7.5 hours.
And how was it? Were you let down? I know you were rooting for somebody. You were rooting for a Boston grad, right?
I was rooting for Kofi, man. Kofi Kingston won, which was great. That was a fun match, and it was really well done. There were some matches in there that left me shaking my head, but I kind of understood what their purpose was on the card. And then the women's finale was actually pretty good. So it ended up being a good show. I don't know if it was worth necessarily my ass cheeks going entirely numb, but it was pretty. I'm just being critical. It was a good show. It's hard to watch anything for 7.5 hours. But to see guys really lay it out there, it was pretty cool. It was really well done.
Dude, that's wild. That's a long time to watch anything.
Oh, yes.
I think the longest thing I've watched is I watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy extended version, all 3 in a row. So I think that was like 15 hours. And it makes sense because I'm a hobbit or a dwarf or whatever it is going on the internet.
Dwarf. Gimli.
There it is. Yeah,
hey,
weird.
Hey, Gimli survives the end of the whole thing, man. Like, not all of them do.
This is very true. At least I made it. All right. Before we go into our discussion, today's episode, every episode, is fueled by.
Oh, we're doing Ground Shark?
Oh, we're doing Ground Shark. Ground Shark coffee. So I'm going to fuel up before we kick this thing off because I need my go juice.
I feel naked without it.
All right. So what I did is I asked each of these guys to find a few topics that they found of interest, and we were going to discuss them because that's what this morning show is about, discussing the things that we're not normally talking about. So I've got mine. These guys have theirs. We're going to kick it off. And I wanted to start with the discussion on phobias. You know how certain people are afraid of heights? Some are afraid of snakes, spiders, whatever it is. I learned that, or there's a theory that your ancestors, something happened to one of them, and it was burnt into their DNA. And they pass that on to you. So I don't like sharks. And the theorists think that somewhere in my line, my lineage, somebody was either attacked by a shark or something happened with the shark. And they're so afraid that it like burnt into them. And then when they reproduced, it passed it on to like, hey, you should be afraid of this thing if you want to survive. Thoughts?
How do you know you're afraid of sharks?
Have you ever seen Jaws, man? Like when I go to the beach, okay. I don't go past my waist.
But that's a digital shark.
No, okay. So when I go to the beach, I don't go past my waist. Like sharks are terrifying.
But have you ever seen a shark, or is it the thought of a shark?
It's the thought of a shark. I've never seen a shark.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. How do you know you're really scared? You might actually like sharks.
Dude, how do you find that out?
I don't know how you would find that out. I'm just saying you're afraid of the thought of a shark eating you while you're in the ocean. Okay, I get that. But are you actually afraid of the shark? That'd be like, okay, I'm afraid of, dogs. But if you never petted a dog, you don't know, but it could be nice ones. I don't know. I just want to.
Mike, I think the echo is still going.
Yeah.
I keep hearing myself and it's killing me.
All right, hold on. You guys, you talk amongst yourselves. I will be right back.
You have been muted.
the techie wizard.
Yeah, last Red Man group, something was happening. I think I muted George Bruno and had to unmute him. And I was like, where's the button? So fortunately, I figured out how to find the control thing to unmute people too, because that sucked. I was panicking.
No. So I understand the fear of getting eaten by a shark. Totally do. But I mean, can you watch sharks on TV?
Yeah,
what if you go to the aquarium and see sharks?
Well, people are afraid of like the most random of things, though. Like people are afraid of things that wouldn't scare me, like spiders. Like, why are people afraid of spiders?
Yeah.
Why are people afraid of heights? Like
mice. I can see. Now heights has more to it. You know, if you're not used to equilibrium and everything else is goofy and off, and that I can kind of see. The fear of mice, I don't understand that one.
Yes, that's a weird one. Whatever.
But if it's going back and that's kind of interesting that it's in the DNA. And as you know, I talked to Roman McKay about DNA and gene splicing and everything else. So
I think getting him on here is a must.
Oh, yes.
That guy, there's rarely times where I just speak to people and I'm just like, yeah, I understand that I'm outmatched in the conversation. But with him, you're just like, man, like you win. You've done the research, man. You've done all the work.
So yeah.
So what did you find? What was your first topic of banter?
Let me find it here. All right. Good old Twitter, as I'm twittering along and something popped in it too. So let's see, what was it? Your ex-wife. My ex was arguing with me from jail, and I've said I'm not arguing with a grown-ass man with a bedtime, and that's actually my mood for 2019. That is an interesting statement. One, your man's in jail. That can't be good, you know, for whatever reason or something. But I never thought about it. It's like, yeah, you do have a bedtime. It's kind of, why would you argue from that point of view anyway? You know, if you're thinking about it, it's like if you're talking to someone on the outside, I think that would be the last time you would want to argue. So I find that a strange conversation. I would probably want to keep it nice, peaceful. Who knows? You don't know all the story around it, you know? But it's just kind of an interesting statement in and of itself.
I think as you get older, you understand the need for sleep. I mean, my kids right now, like they get it. Like when I tell them like, hey, it's bedtime, they're like, yeah, it's bedtime.
Yeah. That was my first. Michael's still working on his, trying to get voice back.
Yeah, the mute isn't there, but I can't hear him. So we'll just roll.
We'll just keep going.
We're just gonna roll without him. Mike's not behind. So as we go through, you know, and looking at the different things that you know happen on Twitter and the Twitter sphere, I recently put up that America. So I'm wearing my USA hoodie, and I was wearing this yesterday. I took a photo and I put that America is the greatest country in the world. I think every person should think their country is the greatest in the world because that's where they're from. Now you could the catch there, like if you grew up in a shithole, like your country's like just sucks. And you're like, all right, I want to go somewhere else. And then you go somewhere else. You're like, all right, I went somewhere else. That place is better. You can say, all right, cool. That place is better. I get it. I've been to other places and I've been to many other countries and still I'm like, America's number one. And I only put it up because I'm like, people are just going to get so pissed off about this. and why? Like, why? I wouldn't even, if somebody put up that Canada's number one, I wouldn't even comment. But cool. Like, that's what you think. But people, when you say certain things, it's like they're like, I have to defend this.
Right.
You serious?
Especially when you put it up about the U.S.
Yeah, it's like the Red Sox or the Patriots. You can't be happy for the winners. You know, you got to root for the underdogs. I forgot the wrestler's name, but I was going to say we'll be rooting for Mike's guy. I don't even know who that is. And I'm going to make sure when I drink, I am plugging the logo. Get your ground shark, TFA 10% off.
You got to do it left-handed, though.
Exactly.
I got to drink, yeah.
The first episode, so I rewatched it. I was like, all right, how's this going to work? You know, these episodes are completely different than any podcast or anything else that I do. So it's like totally off the cuff. And I'm like, all right, like Nick's the man. I don't want him to go homeless. I want him to win. So let's make sure that we sell this dude some coffee. But I'm like, how can I do that? So I'm right-handed. So I'm always drinking like this, you know? God damn it. Got to switch it up. So I'm like, all right, if I put the mic here, it forces me to use my left hand. But back to my point on nationalism. When you find, like, when you put up anything that is pro whatever, you could say, I think the carnivore diet, that's the way to go. Like, when people say things that I don't agree with on certain topics, you know, I have zero inclination to argue them or to defend my point and why I think they're wrong. But there are people who, and I don't know what it is that drives this, but they're like, they have to argue that point. Like, oh, America sucks. Oh, I drive around and America is not great. It's just everywhere else sucks. Well, if everybody else sucks, this just sucks less. Doesn't that mean it's the best? If it just, even if you say it sucks less than everywhere else, that means it is the best by default.
I agree.
And I can't think of any topic, you know, if somebody said, you know, fathers, I guess that's where my line is drawn. Like, oh, fathers shouldn't be present, or husbands, you know, they should just be quiet and be happy to have a wife. I will comment, like, look, you're that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But
Well,
good.
I think some of it is blanket statements. If you make a full-on blanket statement that everything is this or everybody is this, that's where I might make a comment, because that's not true. You know, you get the 80-20 rule in there. It's most. Is there places as good as the United States? Yes, there is. As a whole country, is ours better? I think so too. You know, so that's where you got to look at it. Do we have places in our country that just suck ass? Absolutely. So, but if you're looking at the overall, yeah, we're number one.
You know, that's a great point. So we've got a few guys hopping in the chat. What's up? People are waking up for the morning show. The Morning Brew.
Oh,
so we have, like, I argued with a few guys that are like, oh, this place in Italy, you know, is amazing. Like, look, you're looking at the best of Italy or the best of France, the best of England, and you're comparing it to, like, the most shithole, like, Flint, Michigan. Like, you're comparing it. You're comparing it to, like, you know, New Orleans when they were underwater. Like, that's you can't compare the best of one place. Like, when you look at the whole, like, you've got to look at the entirety of what it is that's going on. And I want to give a shout out to Luca Nicolai and Don. So Luca says, you can be seen as a nationalist and a white supremacist if you say that your country is the greatest in the world. And it's bullshit. And he said it's bullshit. I'm agreeing that. So we've got 3 white dudes and one of us is bald. So this isn't helping the cause at all. But
I apologize.
Like, I have, like, growing up, I had, like, there was never a discussion on, like, racism, you know, and then I joined the Navy and we were all blue, you know, there's one color, you know, right. And, like, it's so you understand there's a difference between white, black, Spanish, you know, Mexican, fucking Chinese, whatever, Filipino, you know, you get that there's differences, but there's no, you know, like, anger, or there's no, like, discrimination between one another. So it's insane that when you say something, like, especially for myself, because I do take a little offense to that because of how much I'm just like, look, I love people. Like, I'm not racist. But if you say I love America, oh, you're racist. What the fuck? How the fuck did that happen?
I love everybody here, but yeah.
And then Don says, if the U.S. slipped from being the best, which means he admits it is, would you admit it to yourself, or would you continue to defend it based on past biases? That's an excellent question, because a lot of us are nostalgic and we'll look back like, in my youth, this was amazing. Like, well, that was 4 years ago. What about now? So to answer that question, to be totally honest, I'd probably still argue that America was the best, even if it wasn't, but it'd be hard for me to find out it wasn't, you know, like something would major have to happen for me to see, like, oh, that country is definitely better. And that's my rant on America.
Yeah, I guess it would have to determine, you know, what's your protocol personally for ranking it as the best. That's kind of what it comes down to. I mean, even the guys from the shithole countries. If you grew up there and that's your way of life and everything else, you know, pick some guy that lives out in the jungle of Brazil. He thinks his country is the best because that's all he knows and everything. Yeah, he may come here and his experience coming, you know, get on a plane, which we all know airports suck, fly all the way here and end up in the middle of New York with millions of people, and he may just go, this is insane. You guys are crazy. I'm going back to my jungle. The United States sucks. It's overpopulated. even though I was driving through Kansas not that long ago and didn't see anybody for 5 hours. You know, you got the differences there.
So, Mike, you're back, and there's no echo.
Oh, I am back. Oh, this is beautiful. Yeah, no, I lived in Japan, and Japan is a cool place. But when you're there, you realize that you have your own culture. Because when you're in America, it's like being a fish in water, right? You don't notice the water because you're in it all the time. But between living in Hawaii and Japan, it was like, okay, Boston is its own culture, let alone America. You know, it's like you start to notice like subsets, and you start to notice subtleties and things like that. And you're right, like what you live in, hey, you choose to live here. So when you choose to live in a place, you obviously like it. It's obviously yours. And that there's nothing wrong with having something that's yours, as long as you're not kicking someone else in the balls, you know?
You know, the point on Japan, a few military guys that I know that were stationed there, they said that it was just amazing, and they loved it. You know, the culture is great, but there is definitely a "I'm not one of you" feeling. Did you have that when you were there?
Oh yeah, I was a 6 foot, 270-pound white dude in the middle of Akita. So yeah, the place I was outside the university. In the university, everyone spoke English because it was an international university where all the students were training to learn English to go abroad. But in the town, nobody spoke English. Japan's approach to foreign languages is the exact same as the United States. Is in that if you know your home language, your home country's language, they don't feel a strong need for you to learn anybody else's. So in the U.S., like kids will take high school Spanish, high school French, high school German, whatever, but will forget it by the time they're 20. And in Japan, it's almost exactly the same thing. So they'll take English when they're in the 4th grade on, but by the time they get out of high school, they're like, screw this. Like we're pretty cool doing what we do. So I mean, I got by because I was able to speak maybe, I don't know, like a 4th grade equivalent to a 4th grader worth of Japanese. And I was able to use hand signals, and I didn't steal anything. So between basic there's a whole lot of that. Between basic civilized behavior and the fact that none of the clothes in the mall would have fit me anyhow, I got along pretty well with everybody. But yeah, like you're saying, there was a very clear distinction between us and them. When you're a foreigner, you're a foreigner. You can marry into Japan, but you're still a bit of a foreigner. And your kids, unfortunately, it can go either way depending on where you're at. Tokyo is probably a little more cosmopolitan than some other areas, but yeah, there's definitely a distinct nationalism in Japan that I mean, for them, they view themselves as a blood and soil country, and in the United States, we're a proposition nation, so it's a really different feeling. But you know, for me, like coming from, like, I prefer the United States. I always will. It's not just my home, but it's a place that I consciously choose to be. So, yeah, when you talk about loving it and it being your country, man, I'm right with you.
Dude, it gets people so upset so fast. When you said proposition nation, so blood and soil meaning you grow up there, that's your place. Proposition meaning if you have something good to bring to us, we'll welcome you. Is that what you meant by proposition nation?
Oh, also, like we have a national creed, we have a constitution, we have things that we believe in. So we can come from whatever DNA we want, but if we want to be an American and we do the things that are necessary to become an American, then we become as American as anybody else. There's no like, well, your grandfather came from here, therefore you're not American. There's a, okay, did you come legally? Check. Did you pledge allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and become a citizen? Yes. Okay. Have you done the necessary steps for citizenship? Check. Do you participate and vote? Check. If you do those things, then you've become part of the civic culture. Other countries, it's like no matter how hard you try, if you're not French, you're not French. If you're not Japanese, you're not Japanese. And a lot of countries, they'll say, you know, oh, well, no, we welcome new citizens and things like that. But they don't do it in the same way the U.S. and Canada do. There's always that distinct sense of otherness. And in Japan, that was very, very clear.
I think that segues pretty well into my news article that I wanted to talk about where you don't fit in, which is a A rhino poacher, so a man who poached rhinos, probably to steal their horns like an asshole, was trampled to death by an elephant, and then his remains were eaten by lions.
That's awesome.
When you talk about not fitting, like this dude going in and saying, "Oh, I'm going to kill these animals," like you're in their territory. You know, you're in the jungle. You know, you got to remember that. So, however smart we are, however intelligent we want to say humans are, we are also just mammals. And when you go in, you've got to understand that you're not immune to these things. So we're talking about sharks earlier, you know, and in the water, I could be swimming along this just dandy off the boat, and then bam, fucking lost a limb because hands are scary as shit. So sharks, you know, when they test to see if you're food or not, you lose a limb. They're like, oh nope, you're not food. Well, there goes my arm. I'm glad you decided not to eat the rest of me. That's cool, you know. But now I can be like the.
So you're saying sharks don't like dwarf?
Paralympics, exactly. Well, my beard should protect me. But I read this article, and there's rarely times where you're like, you know, you deserve that, you know. But like sometimes, like if you see like pedophiles, stuff like that, and they like absolutely get destroyed, you're like, good, you know. And this guy's a poacher, and I'm a huge animal guy, you know. I think every episode I want to bring this up in some fashion. You know, last one I was talking about, you know, the whale that ate all the plastic, and we really do need to not just throw plastic in like litter. And also how in the Navy, you know, we absolutely do that nonstop, which is ridiculous. But, you know, these guys are poaching these animals. These animals are like my kids might not know what rhinos are. Right. They may not know what, you know, the animals that I grew up like. I mean, I didn't grow up around, obviously, but I grew up knowing they existed. You know, they're going to view them the same way we view dinosaurs. They're like that animal doesn't exist to me. And that's sad. You know, that's a pretty depressing thought, because I'm looking like I'm glad this guy got stomped by the elephants. You know, he probably pissed them off too. And I'm glad that the lions ate him. Like, good, man. You're out there killing these animals that are pretty much defenseless. You know, you're sneaking up on them with a fucking rifle, you know, destroying their lives just to steal a horn and let the rest of them rot. You know, it's disgusting. But it's like the bigger picture, you know, that hit me was my kids aren't going to know, or my grandkids rather, like might not know what a rhino is. And that's a sad thought.
See, there's my argument for zoos. I know a lot of people don't like zoos and think they're, you know, just abusive to the animals. And yes, I'm sure that goes on. But at the same time, they're preserving. You know, they're getting animals, and they're even working to put some back into nature. So I think that's one of the good pluses of zoos. That kind of goes off that, you know, or nature preserves. Without some of the nature preserves, the animals would be wiped out. The American buffalo, if we didn't put a stop to killing them, they'd be gone right now. You wouldn't see those. I mean, we're good at destroying stuff, and then at the last minute going, ooh, we should probably save these guys. And sometimes we don't save them. They just get wiped out.
Yeah. The buffalo is a good example. I mean, they were overpopulated and then brought to like literally the edge.
Right.
Which is, you're like, damn. I don't know if you guys do this, but sometimes I do like the thought of, or you know, the mind experiment of what would the world be like if, and I'm sitting there like sometimes I walk around, I'm like, what if, you know, like none of this happened, like we didn't wipe all these animals out, or we didn't build all these things, we were still tribes. Like what would the world look like? Like so many fucking animals and trees and things, and you're just like, man, like we have made a dent on the earth.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of like driving across Kansas. You can see for 100 miles in the distance, and there's nothing. Can't even see a building. I think we have made a dent, but at the same time, and maybe not as big as we think we have. Because there's still a lot of open expanse. You could take the whole world and move everybody into Texas. You can actually move them into smaller. If you do, I have gone down the deal where you can put population into a square mile. And I forget it's someplace over in Southeast Asia. There's so many people per square mile. And if you figure that out, it's like you can fit everybody into Rhode Island if you go off of their statistics.
It's a stretch.
You know, well, it's somewhere.
Rhode Island is great, but Rhode Island is small as shit.
It's small, but if you started piling them up and had skyscrapers and just put everybody in it, which would suck. There is no good about this, in my opinion. But we're spread out. There is a lot of the earth left. Are we fucking it up? Yes, we are, and we need to fix it and clean that part up. But I think the earth has a good way of coming back and cleaning things up for itself. all the natural storms and everything.
Well, you bring up a great point. You know, people talk about overpopulation. We're not going to be able to fit. You know, we're breeding too fast. But you're driving through Kansas with all this open land. Like, there is room for people. People just are viewing it as their little, well, like Mike's in like near Boston. So if you go into Boston, like, oh, there's just too many people. Well, that's because you're all in one spot. Why don't you go out, you know, expand? And then, you know, but that brings in a commute, that brings in having to uplift, you know, what you're comfortable with, to possibly a farm somewhere else. But I mean, I don't think we're near the point of overpopulating the world as much as we're at the point of having to figure out how to deal with these dense these pockets of overpopulation. Yes. So it's not a global. Our cities. Yeah, it's not a global overpopulation. It's a pocket overpopulation.
Agreed.
And then you're dealing with the efficiency of crap. What's the word I'm looking for? Resources. Don't spit your ground shark out.
What time is it? TFA 10% off. What time is it for you right now, Jens?
It's 4:27.
So I want to let everybody know. So it's 5:27 for me. People watching the show, you know, obviously we've got a few guys that are overseas that are like, oh, cool, it's the afternoon. For me, I'm like, oh, it's 5:30 in the morning. For you, it's 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, so, I've been up since 3:30. The alarm went off. I don't usually get up by alarm. The thing's buzzing. I'm like, damn, why did I agree to this?
Anyway. In case you guys didn't notice, when I disappeared for the minute there, I kind of have now a personal investment in making sure the electrical grid works, because the power here just went, nah.
So, nice.
He broke the internet. Yeah. I was wondering, I thought you were going mobile. You're just like, hey, we're on the move.
No, I was. No, the government has not banned me yet. We have not hit InfoWars status yet. So no, it was just the power surge. We're good.
So a solid point from the chat coming from Don. He said we're only overpopulated by detractors to society, not contributors.
Oh, good point.
That's a great, yeah, I like that. What were we gonna say, Mike?
I see. I get confused on that, if only because so many of the people who I would say are detractors are making so much money. So I mean, Kim Kardashian, for example, has what, 35 to 50 million Twitter followers because she had sex with the Frank Stallone of R&B on camera. I don't know if I consider her a detractor or a contributor.
Well, she's creating jobs.
Some kind of job.
You know, because she's selling stuff, which if you go back, you might not be making jobs here, but she's making jobs someplace because she's selling something. So
I don't know the status of her labor. I'm not exactly sure that I'm not going to say they're getting beat with sticks somewhere, and I'm not going to say they're making $50,000 a year either. So, I don't know. I'm just asking questions.
So I think Don's point was more on the societal level as opposed to the but as you bring that up, man, that's an excellent point. Didn't Beyonce, they found out like Beyonce's shirts that were being made or something like that was like child labor? And like you think about these kids that are in these factories, like literally children that are getting like whipped for like 10 cents a day because they want to feed their family, because they got to walk to the river and they can't afford a basket to carry the water back to their, you know, like these conditions that these kids are going through, and we are so far removed. The fact that we're all sitting in our home, I'm sitting in a shed that I built. Like it's not even my home. My home is away from me. Like
Hunter, if you think you get shit for being the Jim Lee of the manosphere, you're messing with the Bayhive now. So you gotta be careful. You think you're gonna get crazy tweets in relation to OneCon?
Bring it on, man.
Multiply that by about 7 million.
What the fuck did you say about Beyonce?
Those tweets are coming, man.
Dude, I'm fucked. Hey, it is what it is.
Just got, yeah.
I don't know. I think our culture is a little crazy right now, because if you look at Twitter, right? John Paul DeJoria founded Patron Tequila and Paul Mitchell in one lifetime after being homeless, and he has like 50,000 Twitter followers. Again, Katy Perry, who basically went to the Democratic National Convention and goes, I'm not the most educated person, but this is important to me. And you're like, the fuck is this? And she has 50 million followers. Now, granted, Katy Perry is a nicer looking person than John Paul DeJoria, but John Paul DeJoria founded 2 multi-billion-dollar companies in one lifetime. And Katy Perry sings Teenage Dream.
Jans, it sounds like you are murdering that chair. Like, I feel for it. It's just like, help me.
Oh, this is an old chair. This is back from when I was fat, so it's nice and big and comfortable.
Nice.
It's got the butt groove.
Yes, definitely. It's well shaped. Yeah, it's been repaired many times.
Can I
Going
talk
back
about the
to
guy
Twitter.
that got eaten by the lion again?
Bringing this full circle.
I gotta say, I don't want to get all Joe Rogan here, but I think if people hunt, they should eat what they kill. And if people are out there hunting elephants, it's like, hey, screw you, pal. You shot it, you eat it. You got a year.
That's on you.
Yeah, the government will have you freeze it and make you eat it over the course of a year. So you'll see this executive sitting there going, cutting into like the 50,000 piece of elephant meat.
The entire tribe is just overweight. They made us eat the elephant.
I don't know. If they went carnivore, though, that would be healthy eating, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would, unless you're eating 50,000 pounds of it. I mean, I'm just saying the human body can only consume so much food. I mean, we're talking elephants here, man.
Spinning it back to Twitter and contributors versus, the rest, and getting off the entire tribe eating the elephant. The proverbial elephant. When you look at the amount of people that are like, all right, I've got a message I want to share, compared to the amount of people who are just like, fuck everything. Like, whatever you say is wrong. Dude, the noise, like the static to noise ratio is insane. But you can build that bubble to where you're kind of out of it. So some people are like, oh, social media is awful. Well, you can cull your list so that it's not. Now, guys hop in all the time to say like stupid shit. But the people you follow, the people you block, you can make your timeline when you hop on a little bit better. Like what I learned it from AJ Cortez. Whenever I put up a thread that starts growing, I guess, I mute it because I don't want to have the engagement. I don't care, But the guys who I do care about, like some of the guys in Fraternity, they'll DM me like, "Hey, I want to talk about that thing you said." Those guys you have a meaningful conversation with. Those are the guys that are actually discussing the point you were making. And the people that are on the timeline, just going through the thread, they don't matter. There was a time where I thought they did. So I try to contribute, but those detractors that came in, I would try to like make my point to convince them. And then I realized like, I don't need to convince anybody of anything, and I'm not going to either.
They do not wish to be convinced. That's part of the problem. You can tell someone who's talking to you in good faith, and it usually starts off politely, and usually doesn't start off with someone going, "Screw you, man," and saying some homophobic insult to you at random. Usually those kind of tweets don't end up becoming productive conversations. So I think you're right. You can definitely prune. At the same time, I think it becomes tough for some people to know that kind of hate is even out there, and it becomes like, I wish I had more of your approach, and I think I'm going to take more of your approach. But it's like waving the red flag in front of the bull. The fact that they know that the hate is out there, it's enough to bother them and get to them. So I don't know if I've become a bit more unflappable over time. I also don't get that much hate, which is really kind of nice because I'm kind of the Mr. Rogers of my little space, however tiny. But I see what you're saying. Like, you can definitely prune it. I mean, the funny thing with you, Hunter, though, is that when you have a conversation that goes nuts and people go crazy, it's always when you say something that's completely conventional within the mainstream of 25 years. It's never you going out there on the limb and saying something ridiculous. It's always like, hey, I told my wife maybe, that shirt showed too much cleavage that time. And then everyone goes,
Dude, I got banned for that one. I had a 24-hour ban.
I mean, where are we when that? I mean, I got friends who are Democratic voters, liberal guys, and I ask them like, all right, I'm going to pose this case. This happened to my friend to you, and they're all like, "The fuck is wrong with Twitter? Like, the fuck is wrong with these people?" It's like even dudes who are like touchy-feely Obama dudes, they're like, dude, I'm not letting my wife go to the club with her titties hanging out. Like, that's just how. But somehow that made the internet go absolutely insane. It's like if you're 180 degrees opposed to somebody, they don't get mad because they can just point you and go, "You're the other, man. It's us and them, and you're them." Whereas if you're like, "Hey, I agree with 90% of what you're saying, but 10% of what you're saying is absolutely batshit crazy," that's when they go really nuts. It's like
That's true. It's almost like if you're not too opposed to them, but you're kind of opposed to them, they're like, I don't know, I gotta smash this guy.
Well, this is kind of funny because one of my subjects that I brought was taboo thinking. And we're really talking about taboo subjects without me even bringing my subject up. So that was pretty nice. So I wanted to throw that in there. Taboo subjects is one of the things I was going to bring to the table this morning. Here we're hitting on it.
Hey, speaking of taboo subjects, let's talk about slavery for a second. So I was looking at today's history, things that happened today. So on April 8th of 1864, the United States passed 38-6, the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. Slavery to me is a black mark on our country. You know, when I look at America, like that's every country has a shit, you know, at some point they were doing something wrong. To me, it was slavery. Like that was a fucked up period of our time, you know. But here's the point I wanted to make on that amendment. It was passed 38-6. Could you imagine being the 6 fucking assholes who were like, no, we should totally keep slavery? Like 38 dudes are like, no, like this is wrong. Like it's time to fix this. And those 6 guys are like, nope, I'm standing my ground. Like, how much of an asshole do you have to be and like stubborn for you to be like, nope? Like they knew going into this, like these guys, like they knew it's over. You know, there's no way that you don't know 38 other guys, a majority are going to pass this thing.
You know what I think that was? Is really they were like, okay, it's going to get passed, but I want to make sure I get voted back into office again. So I'm going to go with what my state wants, even though I know for a fact that it's going to get abolished, because they were just looking at, those are your early guys that were just looking for votes. That's it.
Man, they were playing politics in 1864.
Oh, they were playing politics from the start. That's exactly what it was. It was like, and then they probably made sure, you know, it's like, okay, we got enough over here. Let's make sure it's a landslide. But if we don't vote this way, boom, we know we're getting back in for sure, or they're getting something else. So, yeah.
Man, I've said some bullshit in a job interview to get a job before, but I've never said, hey, everybody, slavery.
Well, I'm the guy who fought against it.
Yeah, you got to look at the times, though. We're putting our perspective, our lens for, 200 plus years ago. Can't do that. Well, we do that, but you have to look at from their point of view. They were going there. Yeah. I mean, look at all the Irish. We're talking slavery. Look at when all the Irish came over and everybody didn't want the Irish coming here in groves. It's the same kind of deal. They didn't want all this influx of Irish. The Irish came here and pretty much helped build quite a bit of the country. It's who built our railroads? Who did this?
Hey, some of those conditions, man, like it was indentured servitude. When people talk about reparations for slavery, I'm like, well, what about the internment camps? What about the Irish immigrants or the Asians that came over and were literally, and not even the internment camp Asians, I'm talking when they were building the railroads. Yeah.
Exactly.
Dude, it was not good. I'm not black, so I don't get that vote, but like my ancestors, there's bad marks on a lot of things that we have going on. But people don't like to talk about that part of it.
Right. I mean, that's like, okay, putting the Native American genocide aside, here's some other things,
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. We got bad marks. It's just that's one of the main ones, and it's we've done some nasty things. Well, we should say there have been groups, corporations, businesses, people, all the way down to people who have done bad things, but not all Americans.
Yep.
See, that's where everyone gets hung up on. We did all these bad things. No, there's a few, million people. Oh, is it an ad time?
It's ground shark refill time. I gotta work on not being so overt in my sponsored by Ground Shark.
Ground Shark.
Start your day like a man. Coffee raises tea levels. Nick is gonna be like, stop saying you're hurting the company. We're unsponsoring.
I lost my train of thought. Move along.
So also in 1974 on today's date, Hank Aaron of the Atlanta Braves hits his 715th career home run, breaking Babe Ruth's record. As a Little League coach, we drafted last Wednesday. I have been coaching with the same guy. They've been trying to split our kids up every year because our kids are just absolute savages. And to have them on the same team is insane because they're just beasts and they work together. So they know each other's moves and they know everything. They pitch and catch to each other. So my son will play catcher, and when his kid's pitching, when my kid's pitching, his will play catcher. Like they just have that groove. So we drafted last Wednesday, and they finally said it. Look, you guys can't coach anymore. You can't play together. Blah blah blah. We're gonna split. So they wanted me to be the manager. So I'm the head coach. He's the manager, meaning he sets the practices, the games, and goes to those meetings. And I just show up and get to have the fun role of leading the kids to glory.
Cool.
So they tried splitting us up. So he's like, all right, fine, whatever, we'll make it work. So they all reached in, grabbed a paper out, and he got the first draft pick. So he picked my kid. So once again, dude, I was like, yes. I was like, oh my God, it couldn't have played out any better.
That's beautiful.
So this is their last year of AAA. They could have played majors this year, which is the next level up. But I kept my son back because I just wanted him to have his final year, not go up to help the league. I wanted him to do his thing. So to read that about Hank Aaron and then to talk about, baseball coming around, dude, it's the warm weather's coming, baseball's coming. I'm fucking pumped.
Hank, and my yard's actually green. I had to mow some grass yesterday. Yes.
It's pouring right now, so hopefully that's fueling the grass to come. Mike, is it raining where you're at?
Let me look. It's been
Mike and I are less than an hour away.
Yeah, it's been off and on. So it's Cape Cod's weird because we're about maybe 10 degrees cooler or warmer than Boston, depending on things. We're a little more temperate. But when it rains down here or the wind starts blowing, sometimes my power goes out. So that's a sacrifice we make for the beauty of the weather. But yeah, it's been raining off and on.
I'm looking at history.
Different things. Or are you reading more? I was waiting.
So for like a fraction of a second, I forgot that I was being recorded. I'm like, oh, this is some interesting shit. I'm just like scrolling through, and I'm like, oh fuck, like, we're on air, we're live. Let's bring it back.
I mean, look, I love that you're studying history. I spent a lot of money on an unnecessary graduate degree in history, and frankly, like I prefer your approach of just click and find some cool shit. Yeah. Your approach is probably smarter.
Just it's free. I scroll through a timeline.
That's what I'm saying. That between that and the local library, I think you're good.
All right, this is my last one before we shift back. We have another 15 minutes. So on April 8th in 1994, Kurt Cobain, singer and guitarist for the grunge band Nirvana, was found dead in Seattle. So today is the anniversary of Kurt Cobain's death. Suicide. Or murder, if you're into the theory.
Dude, I don't want to get all Rollo Tomasi, but like during that period of time, I was still into like hair metal. So I was not one of the cool kids at all. When Nirvana came out, it became really cool when I was like, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 to get really dark and depressed and kind of hang out and just talk about Seattle, things like that. But for me, I was still like, hey guys, Winger. And people were kind of like, yeah, between them and Poison, I think you're screwed. And I'm like, oh, damn.
I like how you bring up Rollo. So someday the pictures are going to air. I've seen one of them. Rollo, like people don't have any clue, and the world is not ready for the guitarist of Rollo Tomasi. They know the author, they know the writer, they don't know the rock star of Rollo Tomasi. And I look forward to the world receiving that photo and then that pass of this man. It was, dude, when I saw it, I was like, holy shit, man. Like any discussion does not do justice to what he was rocking. Like that shit was down to his ass.
Did he have a feathered mullet? How did this work?
He was just like, you look at him, you're like, yeah, that guy fucks. Like that guy is partying. So for the last 15 minutes, you guys have anything in particular you wanted to get out there?
I just want to give a shout out to Kofi Kingston for winning that title at WrestleMania last night, and here's why. Because
like how we had to bring wrestling back to it.
Drop the goddamn ball on this. This kid graduated from Boston College in 2003. Okay, his dad is one of the librarians for the university for 30 years. And I'm looking at their Twitter. I'm looking at their Alumni Association Twitter and all this. There is not a mention of this guy. He's basically headlining a TV show that's going to be watched by 200 million people worldwide. And the university's like, no, it's WWE. There's no wine and cheese involved. So they don't even talk about it. And you're like, screw you, bougie assholes. Like, this is fucking great. And you guys aren't even talking about it. Why? Because you're afraid someone might associate you with, like, with WrestleMania? Oh, God forbid. It's in 27 languages globally. And you're like, oh, well, whatever.
So we have 6 people watching. 7 as we're speaking, watching live, and all those people got that shout out. So Boston College might not air it, but you know what? TFA will, and those 7 people watching will hear it.
Right. America.
Dude. Like, I hope someday this is like I'm on national television. I'm like, you know where this started? 3 dudes up at 4 in the fucking morning talking to 7 guys online.
Ain't no FCC to censor me. Well, maybe.
So from Don, he said, Hunter, to your shark fear story, and I like how this brought it all the way back.
Full circle.
Did that article mention what happens if someone conquers a fear? Does that erase the fear from DNA line? So no, the article I read did not mention that, but it did mention that people can overcome, what's instilled in them. And this goes to a point that it was Sam Bada who brought it up, but it was Jay Campbell, Petey Mangan, I think Jim Brown, who were talking about DNA being like you can overcome your genetics. You can make it work for you just by consistently your environment as well as the habits that you have. You can overcome what is instilled in you from birth. So whether it be a certain metabolism, certain allergies, if you take the certain steps, you can beat that. And I think this goes to it to where, sure, you're born with an innate fear of X, but you can overcome it just by either exposing yourself to it. My dad had a boat growing up, and we go out in the ocean, and literally, like when I would jump off the boat, and this is as a kid, like this is before I saw Jaws, before I even had an understanding of what the fuck sharks were really. I was already like in the air, turning around, trying to swim back to the boat by the time I hit the water, because I think it's called thalassophobia, I believe, where you're afraid of what's underneath, like what's in the depths of the ocean. Dude, I still like when I see pictures online of like just looking deep into like dark water and you don't know what's down there, I'm like, I'm gonna throw up. Like my heart starts pounding. So
and then you did how many tours over? You were on a ship.
And I swam, man. I will go in the ocean. I don't let my fear hold me back. But it's not that I'm over the fear. I'm still terrified. I just do the thing because I'm not a pussy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Dude, my dad has no fear of heights. When he was like 19, he took a job fixing poles for the utility. And my brother and I both have a deathly fear of heights, which is insane considering like my brother and I are both like larger individuals. My dad's like this tiny little wiry dude, but my dad could just climb and it wasn't even an issue. Well, my brother's wife decides to keep going on these vacations that involve like heights. So they went to the Grand Canyon and they took responsible pictures so they didn't fall off the rim, which was good. But also when they went to Hawaii, his wife's like, let's take a helicopter ride over the Waimea Canyon. And my brother's like, okay. So they get him on. My brother shows up looking like Davy Boy Smith in 1990 something, all jacked up. And the helicopter guy's like, hey, you want to get on? My brother's like, okay. My brother gets on the helicopter. I think the only thing in his life that he's frightened of was that helicopter ride over the White. Yeah, heights. And we asked our dad, we're like, heights, like it's ridiculous. And he goes, to learn phobia, man. It's completely learned. And it's like, I don't know. I think fear of falling is pretty natural. I think that one might be kind of built in. The irony of it all is my dad ended up getting vertigo. So.
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah. So it's like he can't do it, but he has absolutely no fear of it. So it has nothing to do with fear. Yet my brother and I could do it, but we're like, I don't know, man. And for me, like, I don't know. I went to wrestling school and the top rope was fine, but then I'd see dudes climbing up on balconies and ladders and jumping off, and I was like, that's not going to happen.
4 feet. That's the cutoff.
Yeah, it's about 4 feet. 4 feet is good. But yeah, anything higher than that. I saw a 300 plus pound man jump off a 25-foot balcony, and that was I never want to see that again.
But you're watching WrestleMania, so it's possible that it will.
I saw a 50-year-old man do that last night, so that's a little better.
All right, guys, we got 10 minutes left. We're gonna start to wrap this one up. So, Jans, if people want to hear more from you or to read your writing, where can they find you?
What is it? at Steel Jans on Twitter. That's there, and then that'll lead you to barbaricrhetoric.com. And those are my 2 spots right now.
What can they find in Barbaric Rhetoric?
Say again?
I said, what can they find? What's your writing on? What are these guys? What can they expect?
I want it from your words. It's a smattering of things. I deal a lot with raising my son. Viewpoints, just things I want to leave them. Thoughts, ideas, other things from other fathers. Sometimes I go off into some crazy ideas and just throw stuff out there and see what responses I get.
For those 6 people watching, I will be dropping the sites to both these guys into the description. I put their Twitter, but I'm going to add their websites below that after. And Mike, where can people find you? Where can they hear you?
People can find the Mike Kane Cast on iTunes, Android, Spotify. Mike Kane Cast, MikeKaneCast.com is my blog, and we have all that. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Kane Talking. Although if you're looking at my mug right now, I don't know why you want to look at my photos. But
see, he's been doing that for a while. Yeah, it's
the podcast is
up to 5 o'clock.
The podcast is great because we got guys like Jans. Steel Jans was on a couple weeks back and dropping his gold and his knowledge. So if you want to hear more of Jans, you can go. The circle can come complete by going to MikeKaneCast.com, downloading that 2-part series. Also, this week, we got the Hustler Rip Rogers, the greatest wrestling trainer of all time, on. He breaks the Mike Kane Cast record for F-bombs within the first 10 minutes. So it's pretty money. But he gives a unique perspective on what it's like to teach guys. I mean, he taught John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, and all those guys. So he gives a unique perspective on what it's like to train athletes and to really develop wrestlers. So it's pretty cool. He's not what you'd expect. You'd think, oh well, this guy's a wild man. That's like, yep, he's a wild man. But at the same time, the dude has been training these guys at the highest level for 20, 30 years. So he has all sorts of insights on how to work with people, how to cut bad habits, how to work with people. It's pretty cool. So that's again MikeKaneCast.com, iTunes, Android, Spotify, whatever you prefer.
It's insane the personalities that come together. So on Twitter, we have certain topics we're always discussing: fitness, lifting, health, masculinity, fatherhood, marriage, sex. Bing, bing, bing. Wash, rinse, repeat. You're talking about this guy who's coaching all these wrestlers. James is talking about his perspective on like all things, to include fatherhood. And then now we've got all of this coming together to where we've talked about elephants fucking killing poachers.
There you go.
So I'm really enjoying this. It's kind of like a breath of fresh air. It's kind of like I'm doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing, but differently, you know?
Yes.
And it's nice to break out of that loop.
Well, it's almost off-air conversations. That's what it is. This is what we're all talking about on our own. You know, it's not our main theme. There's the big thing. We get away from our main theme and we can talk about any kind of crazy little nuanced, weird people get eaten by lions. Yes. Awesome.
Any topic that it's clear that a guy you would call Chad is not talking about. Bring it right here.
All right, guys. We're going to wrap this one up. I am Hunter Drew. This is the 2nd episode of the Morning Brew. Actually, dude, so listen to the title. It's the Morning Brew with Hunter Drew, episode 2.
Nice.
What a fucking title.
Brought to you by Ground Shark Coffee.
Exactly. So I didn't even have to plug. I've got somebody else. But I mean, it is sponsored by Ground Shark. There's a link below. The coffee's fucking amazing. You can get 10% off your order, TFA 10. This has been an excellent episode. I am looking forward to future ones. Maybe we can get Jans to wake up early one more time. In June, the time will be pushed back. Once I don't have the only reason this is from 05 to 06 is because right after this, I'm going to go inside. I'm going to shower, have some more coffee, and then I'm off to work. So I've got to do this before the 9 to 5. So
braving the highways of Rhode Island,
dude. 295 to Route 4. So, I mean, it's one of those things where even though it sucks to wake up this early, it's awesome. Like my day can't be bad because I'm trying to look back to this. Like also I'll check, see if any more comments are there or like how many views we get. Like it gives you something to kind of look forward to. And then for those that are watching, it's every Monday and Friday, 05 to 06 Eastern Standard Time. If we start getting the views up, we start getting more, I guess, attention, and people are supporting this, then I might open it up to Wednesdays as well, do it 3 times a week. But for right now, Mondays and Fridays, we start the week together, we end the week together.
There we go.
So take care, subscribe, share, pass the word. We're out.